Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan, or the only Spanish I'll be able to do today. Hola, me llamo es Ryan. It is so wonderful to be with you all and to be invited to be one of your speakers for this year's International Book Fair. I am an international storyteller. So what that means is for the past 16 years, I've been traveling not only where I live, the United States, but also around the world, sharing stories around my own life journey, which includes a transition from female to male. Along with sharing my own story and journey, I also work in educating and providing guidance to healthcare systems, universities, corporations, nonprofit agencies, and communities on how to navigate understanding ourselves, our relationship with others, and our relationship with ourself and our sexuality. It's been a great honor to be able to appear on different formats of media over the years. But how this all actually started was in the spring of 1999. I am dating myself a little bit here. I was 19 years old in the spring of 1999. I was in my second year of college at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in the state of Nebraska. And here you can see a picture of my college dorm room. I was in my dorm room surfing the internet, or the web, as we used to call it back in the day, and I landed on a website called Something Fishy. And this was a website that provided education around something we call eating disorders, meaning people that aren't able to have a healthy relationship with food. So they're either taking in too much or not taking in enough calories to be able to sustain their health. As I was sitting on this website as a sophomore, the spring of 1999 at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, I was reading about what's referred to as Anorexia Nervosa and realizing that I was very sick. I was not taking in enough calories to sustain myself. And I knew that I needed to change, but I didn't know how. And so the rest of the story is going to share with you how I was able to come to that change and continue to move forward in my life and inspire others to move forward in theirs as well. So through my work, I've been featured on different forms of media, including a documentary on the MTV Logo network called Gender Rebel. I've appeared on several different forms of talk shows where I share my story. I appear on stages. I wish I could be on a stage with all of you right now versus a webcam, but I am grateful for our technology. And I'm also an author of the books Second Son, which shares my story from childhood to the 5 years into my transition, and then Transforming Manhood, which I released in 2019, which shares how I'm navigating this world as they see me as a white man. When I share my story, I do have two disclaimers. The first is that I am not the spokesperson for the transgender community. I can simply share my story. I guess that's really the only disclaimer I have today, because we're not together, so you can't ask me questions. So I am not the spokesperson. I can only share my story, which will look different from someone else's. But before I share my story, I always like to provide some foundational information around something that is part of each and every one of us, no matter our age, no matter our culture, no matter the language we speak, or the region we live, and that is human sexuality. We all have what's referred to as a sex. We all have our gender. We all have our ways that we like to express ourselves, and we all have an orientation. When I say orientation, I am talking about our orientation to other people and relationship building. All right. So we can have what's referred to as an affectionate orientation towards other people. Our affectionate orientation towards other people are people that, for example, are your best friends, people that you trust, people that you have a very deep, intimate feeling for, yet you do not want to necessarily date them or be partnered with them, but you have a deep trust and liking and love for that other individual. We also have what's referred to as erotic orientation. Our erotic orientation is related to those feelings that we have, which would be sexual towards other people. And then we can also have it towards people that we date or are partnered with. Then lastly, we have what's referred to as romantic orientation. Our romantic orientation is our orientation towards other people's in which we do fall in love and seek some form of partnership. In our younger years, that could be dating. And in our older years, that can be being partnered together, living together, or seeking marriage. So with our orientation, it's very complex, and it's something that we learn about as we age and our relationships with other people and their genders as we age. It's a lifelong experience as part of each and every one of us. Now, if we go to our sex, gender, and expression, our sex is what makes up our physical body. All right, so this is a composition of our chromosomes, our internal body parts, our external body parts, and our hormones. All these things combined make up a human body, which we refer to as sex. Now, in society, and this could be in Mexican culture or in the United States culture, oftentimes we think of male and female, boy and girl, the chromosomes XX and the chromosomes XY. However, we have individuals, no matter where we live, who are born that aren't standard male development or standard female development. This means that we have people who have a different composition of either their internal or external body parts, of how their body regulates hormones, or a chromosomal makeup that's different from male and female. The word that the community uses as an umbrella term is the word intersex. All right, and intersex conditions are actually quite common. Some, though, are so subtle that people would never know that they're intersex. Others are more extreme that we would see them typically at birth, and that's typically dealing with something externally with someone's body. All right, so for humans and our and sexuality and looking at sex, we have individuals that go beyond even male and female. All right, so we have our body, and then we go to our gender. Our gender is our sense of self. If we look statistically, the majority of human beings have it where their sex and their gender are aligned. However, we also have individuals where your gender is different from your sex assigned at birth. So, for example, I was born assigned female, and at age 25, I finally understood that my gender was male. And at that time, I was able then to access hormones and surgeries to align this physical body of mine with who I knew myself to be on the inside. And I'm so grateful for our medical advances and the opening of hearts to accepting transgender people and allowing us to be able to live our lives as authentically as possible. We all can begin to label gender as early as toddlerhood. And the reasons why researchers state this is because between 18 months to 24 months of age is when we see language acquisition in children, meaning children start to speak and share what it is that they see in the world through their words. So at this time, children can start speaking and seeing gender as far as other people, or start developing a sense of who they are. And that sense will continue to grow as we age, all right? Looking now to expression, our expression of our gender or our expression of ourselves is just how we like to express ourselves out there to the world. All right, so you can express yourself out there to the world in ways that make you feel comfortable, but you don't necessarily seek to transition to a different gender. You just want to be able to wear the clothes that you like, wear your hair the way that you like to style it. For me, I like to wear a beard, other people may not. So it's all the ways that you like to communicate to the world outside of you about how you feel and how you want to show yourself. All right. Some people like to show all the flair or flair. I use both words because one means style and one means talent. Others like a little bit of both, and then others like to keep things plain and simple in their lives. For example, one of my dearest friends, who's also a trans man like myself, he's a millennial. I'm Generation X. He has tattoos that go down from his ankles all the way up to his chin. He has gauges in his ears. He has a nose ring. He has a lip ring. He has a shaved head. And when he goes out, he's always dressed very dapperly, like with nice vests and button-up shirts. He always looks good, right? He likes to show all his flair. Me, I like to keep things plain and simple in the sense that I like to wear t-shirts, blue jeans, and cowboy boots. We all have different ways that we like to express ourselves to the world, and what we seek is to be able to be given permission to do that versus having to feel like we have to be stuck into certain roles or act certain ways in order to be accepted. And this is something that's a challenge for all of us just because of the cultures that we're raised in, the families that we're raised in, and where we live in for regions. which is why I like to now share a story to help people understand transgender identities more. And I like to begin again by just saying, hello, my name is Ryan. It's so wonderful to meet you. Again, wish we could be in a room together. There's so much power when we're able to share our name and hear people use our name in a response. That captures a lot of who we are, the essence of who we are. So it's always important to respect the name that people go by and to use it, because that's a way to build relationships and increase forms of communication. For me, I was born back in 1979 in the state of Nebraska in the United States. So I'm right in the center of the United States. And if you look at this map and you see where it says Grand Island there near the center by the Platte River, I grew up just east of that in a little town called Aurora. Aurora it's still there, is a farming community. So I grew up around cows and cornfields, and I was in the country. And also then our town was very small, of about 4,500 people. So we had a small town square and a small community. When I was born in 1979, let me back up for a second. When I was born, my dad was a chiropractor and my mom was a homemaker. I also have a brother who's 9 years older than me and a sister who is 2.5 years older than me. When I was born in 1979, they weren't using ultrasound machines to detect the gender, or sex, I should say, of the baby. My grandfather, however, was a water witch, meaning that he could cross two sticks and go around the ground and find water in the fields where they farmed, all right? So he used to do this trick when my mom was pregnant, where he would take a sewing needle and he would put a piece of string through the eyelet, have her hold out her palm, and then he would drop the needle. And the old tale was whichever was the dominant directional swing of the needle, this way or this way, was the sex of the baby. For me, that needle swung towards male, so my grandpa proclaimed, "You're having a boy." Now, my parents weren't so naive to think this was true science. However, they were very excited by the idea of having a little boy, especially my dad. However, when I was born, the doctor looked between my legs and said, "It's a girl." And my parents were like, "Oh, crap." To the point where they didn't have a female name picked out for me. My little name card just said female Sallans. All right. It wasn't actually until I was 18 years old and being a first-year student in college in an English composition class, we were given an assignment to write an essay about our name. And it was at that time that I learned that my parents did not name me. My brother named me. And not only did he named me after his 9-year-old girlfriend. So I got the name Kimberly put across my birth certificate, right? Even though most people just called me Kim, the Burley came out usually when I got in trouble, all right? I'll pause by saying that I share the name given to me at birth. And the reason why I do that is because I am a storyteller. And also because for the first 25 years of my life on this planet, I did live it and walk it as Kimberly Ann Sallans. All my academic degrees came through my life and lens as Kimberly Ann Sallans. I wouldn't be who I am today without those 25 years from my past. I carry myself and that past with great respect and regard. All right. Having said that now, just because I share my name, many people who are transgender do not want to share a name given to them at birth. So it's important not to ask people what name was given to them at birth and to respect the name that they use today, because that's the name that they go by. So for me, I was born in 1979, and my sense of my gender began around 2.5 to 3 years old. This happened during the summertime. We lived in the country. My dad had an in-ground pool put into our backyard, and so I was standing out there in this bright, hot pink bikini that my mom put me in. I mean, this pink was not a good shade for my complexion whatsoever, all right? So I was standing in this bikini, and I looked at my dad and my brother in their swimming trunks, and my mom, my sister in their bathing suits, and I proceeded then to take the top part off so that I could have swimming trunks like my dad and my brother. It's my first memory of looking out into the world and seeing gender and trying to adjust my own forms of expression to align with what felt more natural to me. My sense of being male continued to grow with each year that I aged. By first grade, I firmly believed that I was Elvis Presley reincarnated. It didn't matter that he died in 1977 and I was born in 1979. It all happened in August, and so I just felt he waited around for me, and I was Elvis, all right? In this last photo down there at the lower corner, you can see me in a little Superman outfit. My mom sewed that for me one year for Christmas. What you do not see in that picture is she also sewed a little skirt but I refused to wear the skirt because I was super boy, not super girl. In this photo, you can also see my hair is getting a little bit longer. That hair continued to grow to the next year to where it was the lower part of my back. I hated this hair, especially at night when my mom would call me into my bedroom and in her hand would be a hairbrush. My mother, who's still alive, thankfully, but back then she was a very aggressive brusher, and I have a really sensitive head. So she would aggressively brush my hair, which I never really appreciated. And then she's not done yet. Oh no, she would then part both sides, braid both sides, and then roll them both up and put bobby pins in. So essentially I had a honey bun affixed to either side of my head. All right. After she was done with this torturous process, she would tell me to go say goodnight to my dad, who was out watching the evening news. So every time when she did this to me and I'd go around the corner and say goodnight to my dad before going to bed, he would look at me and say, "Oh, my little Princess Leia." To this day, I will no longer watch Star Wars. I saw the first one, and after that, I boycotted because I was so upset about being referred to as a princess. We had a tradition in my family for the first day of school every year. My mom would take us to get a nice outfit for my sister and I. That would be dresses. And then my mom would take us into town and have our hair trimmed up. So that first day of school, we'd leave a really good impression for our teachers. Well, going in second grade, my mom took me into town to Connie's house to get my hair cut. And I sat in Connie's chair and she said, "How are we going to cut it today?" And I said, "Connie, I want it short like a boy's." She's like, "Are you sure about this?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Is your mom okay with this?" "Yeah." So she cut my hair off, and instantly I loved it because number one, no more honey buns. And number two, it just felt right for me. Needless to say, the car ride home was pretty quiet with this new haircut. It was quite extreme change for me. When we got back to the country, I jumped out of our little pickup truck and I ran to the backyard and I saw my reflection in the glass door by the pool. And I jumped up in the air because I was so excited by this new haircut. And then I saw my dad back on the back deck and I started running towards him. And at first he had this confused look on his face like, who is this little boy running at me in the middle of the country? And then as I got closer, he realized it was me and that I had cut off all my hair. And he had this look that only a parent could perfect of, what did you do? What did you do with my little girl and her pigtails? And I'll never forget that nonverbal message from him of how disappointed he was because he just loved that long hair and especially the pigtails. But it was just not right for me. It was during this time, around age 7, where I started to struggle with myself and struggle with trying to find a way to fit in with other people because I just felt wrong and I felt like I was never accepted. In fact, around age 7, one day I was out playing in the trees in our backyard and I came inside to wash my hands for dinner. And I was standing in our little half bathroom washing my hands, looking in the mirror. And at first I was really sad because I have green eyes. And at that time, I just really wanted blue eyes like Superman. Plus my mom and my brother had blue eyes, so I wanted them for that reason too. So I was bummed about that. And then there was another voice that came inside of me that just told me, very matter-of-factly, "You are a girl. You're not a boy." And I remember at that moment having dread consume me. And I remember thinking verbatim, this really sucks. I've got dealt a bad deck of cards, and I need to live with this the rest of my life, and I don't know if I can. It was at this time that I started to become very, very depressed in life. And sadly, even at these young ages, I started thinking about suicide because I didn't know if I could continue on in this world having to be somebody that I just knew inside was not me. Fortunately, during this time, to help me get through some of my sadness, I landed on a movie on the TV network HBO. It was called Something Special. And there was a little girl that looked like me, that dressed like me. And in this movie, one night she made a wish on a star, and the next day she woke up and she was a boy. And I remember watching this thinking, this is possible? You can just wish on some stars and have your life change? This is amazing. And so something that helped me get through my younger years during this time was to just wish on stars and hope that the next day I'd wake up and be different. Of course, nothing happened. And slowly, I continued to age. By age 12, my sense of being male started to completely fade away. And the reason why it faded away is because my body started to change more and more into the female shape and form due to puberty. So estrogen was starting to impact my shape and form and my body size. At this time, my Where's Female got completely shut down, and I was just starting to fight against my body and the changes that it had from something that's very natural, puberty. What we find in research for transgender youth is that when they reach that state in puberty where hormones start to influence their body shape and size, we can see a dramatic increase in both psychological and physical distress because your bodies are changing more and more into shape and form that you do not identify with. This is why in the medical field, they're looking at, there's more and more, very beneficial research coming out consistently around the benefits of puberty blockers for youth who are transgender. And with puberty blockers, what that does is it just puts your puberty on pause. It's like a pause button. And once you get off the blockers, either your puberty resumes with your hormones that you have in your body, or if you start on hormone therapy, you would start to puberty through those hormones that you identify with. All right. I did not have access to these type of medications or knowledge of transgender identities during this time, so it was nothing that we could ever have explored in my journey. So for me at this time, I just continue to try to navigate this life and figure out how I can work socially with other people and not feel so uncomfortable. While I was struggling internally with all this, I did not share it with the external world. I did not speak to my feelings or share them because I didn't know how to. And this was very difficult for me because I had this internal struggle, but I still had to go out to this world and navigate it. And for me, I don't know what it is about me, but I'm a prime target for teasing. All right. People today may call it bullying. I just call it teasing. People would tease me for the size of my feet, the size of my nose, the way that my hair was styled, my body shape and size, and the clothing that I wore. I remember one day when I was in high school, I was waiting for my math class to start, and two of the popular guys just looked at me while we were waiting for our teacher to start everything, and they just said, "Hey, I wonder who could win a fight between Kim and Mike Tyson." Probably Kim, right? And so they were, again, making fun of me and my size, and so I felt about this big in my school. Going home, it didn't help because while I was little, meaning in elementary school, I was allowed to be what is referred to as a tomboy. I was allowed to play and dress in more masculine manners. Going into puberty, and especially entering into high school, I was expected to shed all of that and to become a lady. And so in my home, I was often teased because I did not conform to what they wanted for a girl, which included how to wear my hair, wearing makeup, and the clothing that I wore. In fact, one time my mom, trying to help me out, took me into town to the Mary Kay lady, all right, so the person that does makeup consultation. So I had to sit for an hour-long makeup consultation in high school and learn about all different shades and blendings of makeup. And then I had to practice putting makeup on in front of this consultant and my mom. To this day, I maintain that eyeliner should not be used because nothing that sharp should ever be close to somebody's eyeball. All right. My mom bought the makeup after his consultation, and I threw it in my closet like I threw that skirt to the Supergirl outfit that my mom made. And every once in a while, to pull that makeup out and put it on my face. I didn't do it for me. I did it for everybody else because I knew that was the expectation. And then after I would put this makeup on my face, I'd hear everybody say, "Oh, look how pretty you can be. See, you're pretty too." I didn't want to be pretty. I just wanted to be me. And so I really struggled in my home and in my community in trying to find this center of self in a way that I really just felt like I fully fit in. By the end of my senior year, I had 3 goals. The first was to get out of Aurora, Nebraska. I managed to do that by going to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Now, mind you, that's only an hour away from my hometown, but that was an hour enough. My other goal is that I wanted to get hard and defined 6-pack abs. Now people talk about getting hard and defined 8-pack abs. I'm like, where these other 2 packs come in after the past 20-some years? Growth hormones in our food or what? And then lastly, I wanted to find a man that would marry me because I believe that if I married a man, I'll be right in the world and people could see that I'm lovable and there'd be no more rumors about me being a lesbian, meaning being a woman who's partnered with a woman. These are terrible goals to have going into college, so much that I almost dropped out my first year because I felt so out of water and still just so uncomfortable and confused about what to do with my life. During this time, I also started dating someone, a guy that I knew from my hometown. He was 4 years older than me. We met because we were both in the anthropology program together. And so we started dating, and at the end of the year, after 8 months together, we went on a camping trip, and then he just disappeared. He didn't call me, email me. We did not have texting at that time. Actually, we didn't have cell phones at that time. So I did not get a landline call or an email from him. He was just gone after 8 months of dating. So going into my sophomore year of college, I said to myself, you need to change. You need to become more feminine. Because if you aren't more feminine, people aren't going to love you. Nobody's going to want to marry you, and it's going to be hard for you to find a job. So this type of thinking then led me to behaviors. The behaviors that led me to be on that website to learn that I had anorexia nervosa. While my eating disorder nearly killed me, it actually saved my life because it forced me to go to therapy. It forced me to start doing the work to find my voice, not the voice of my family, and to start using my voice and living my life guided by my own personal feelings, not someone else's. This was a very difficult process. Recovery can be difficult, but it's definitely possible with eating disorders. And I'm so grateful to all the work I was able to do in it. What I found, though, in therapy is that it was very difficult for me to use my words. And so I had to use drawings and artwork to start conversations and to bring out the things that were deep inside of me. So what I'm going to be showing you in the next 3 slides are artwork around me trying to find identity and also me trying to describe my feelings around eating disorders. In the drawings that I show you, please know that when I speak and the images that I draw, it's my eating disordered brain that is guiding this. All right. So it's important just to have that disclaimer, I feel. So the first image that I had to take into my therapist to begin conversations around understanding myself is what you see on this screen. So I drew this one night and I took it into my therapy session. And again, this is my eating disorder speaking. What I said to my therapist when I took this image in is I said, the white part of this image represents my body, represents what I feel the world should see, what I feel is comfortable for me to be able to navigate in, and what feels natural. What I've blackened out on this body is what I see, and I'm going to put this in quotation marks, as my fat. All right. What I see as being disgusting on me. What I see that I need to rid myself of in order to have less anxiety and depression in my life. When I shared this with my therapist, she then started working with me with body distortion and negative self-talk and beliefs versus reality. What I recognize now looking at this photo or looking at this drawing is what I was trying to pull out through my artwork was my gender. The white being a more angular form, something that we may attune more to masculinity or the male size and shape and form of body. What I've blackened out is what we could attune to femininity when you look at softness and curvature of a body. All right. So I was trying to bring out gender. I just wasn't able to do it through words with her. In fact, all my artwork that I did, which I have a lot of it, oftentimes you didn't see a gendered body. You saw an androgynous body where you can't see secondary sexual characteristics. The one thing that I would do with them often, though, is put long hair on them. And the reason why I did that is because in college, I'd wear my hair long in order to first cover my face because I was so anxious walking around campus. And also with the hope that less people would mistake me as being male when I was female, especially in the restrooms. It was very uncomfortable and awkward for me. In doing my work with my therapist, 4 years later, I was getting a master's in English. And so I brought another image into her because I was still really struggling with my body. And at this time, as I mentioned, I was getting a master's in creative writing. So I believe that you had to be really curmudgeon and smoke a lot. I did smoke, but I did not inhale because it made me cough. All right. So I took this image into my therapist and I said, okay, now if I look like this, then I'll be happy. Then I'll feel comfortable. My therapist looked at this image and said, really, that's a very masculine image. And I was like, uh-oh, where's she going with this? She said, that image looks a lot like your father. And I was like, I'm getting uncomfortable now because she was trying to go into a territory that I was terrified to tiptoe into because I didn't know what would be revealed if I did. And that was sexuality. All right. After this session, I realized I really did have to explore more about my sexuality. In fact, in my master's program in creative writing, I kept writing all these short stories because I really just loved fiction. But now I write nonfiction, which is kind of funny because I always said I would never write nonfiction. But I loved writing fiction. And my characters kept becoming lesbians. And as in my writing workshops, my classmates would ask me, like, you got a lot of lesbians in your stories. Are you one? And I'm like, what? No, this is just where my characters are taking me. Even though deep down inside, I recognized that I was having more and more feelings that went beyond affectionate orientation towards women. I was having very much romantic orientation towards women, and I didn't know what to do with that until another year into my now second master's program in educational psychology. I met a woman who was part of the lesbian community. And I met her because she was working with me at the University Health Center on our campus. I worked in the sexuality education department. She identified as lesbian. At this time, I was still not identifying as anything. I was just very confused. And so she helped me come out into the lesbian community. And through my friendship and through that coming out, I started noticing my first aha in life, my first big epiphany in life, the reason why I tell people to honor your truths. When I came out, I started noticing that my eating disorder behaviors were disappearing and that I was walking straighter and that there was a pit in my stomach that just disappeared. It was an aha moment in my life at age 24 of, wow, look at what happens when you honor a part of who you are. Look at what happens and how healing it is when you just allow yourself to be you instead of always trying to control yourself for fear of how you're going to be judged or fear of what your parents are going to say or other people. You have to be you in your life. It's so important. This is your life to live, not someone else's. So I had this big epiphany and I went out to the lesbian community and I started dating someone in the community. And I was working on trying to find my sense of self and sense of comfort. And what I realized over time is that I loved being part of the LGBT community, but I still felt wrong in my skin. And I didn't know what that was, all right? Until 8 months after coming out as a lesbian, 8 months into a relationship with another woman, in December of 2004, we decided to take a vacation for our winter break from college to Boston, Massachusetts. While we were in Boston, we went to an independent LGBT-owned bookstore called Calamus Bookstore, which is in the Leather District of Boston. It has since closed due to the owner's passing, which makes me very sad because this bookstore changed my life trajectory. My girlfriend and I of 8 months were walking through the different sections of the store, and we landed in a section that was titled transgender. Now, I knew this word because I took advanced human sexuality in college, and I worked as a sexuality educator, but it was never a word I really connected personally to for a couple reasons. One, the textbooks back when I was studying in college, when you talk about transgender people, they oftentimes just had a bunch of words, and then they usually show close-ups of people's genitalia after a gender-affirming surgery. So I couldn't really connect to an individual story or a whole human being when they just parse out pieces of people's bodies and put them into textbooks, right? And another reason I never really connected to the word is because I just felt it would be too expensive and I'd never be able to access the surgeries or the hormones to live my life as a male. That all changed in December of 2004 in this bookstore in the transgender section when I pulled the book Body Alchemy by Lauren Cameron, who now goes by Rex Cameron, that was published by Cleese Press back in 1996. So I found this in 2004, and what I saw was a photography book of men who had all been born assigned female but had transitioned, and they were living their lives for who they know themselves to be and showing it to the world. And seeing all these different men that transitioned from female to male, I saw a mirror put in front of me, and I instantly knew I was also a trans man. And I instantly knew it was okay for me to go forward and I'd be able to figure out how to make it happen. All right. During this time, I had another ray of light shining on me, but that quickly got hit with a cloud, a big storm cloud, kind of like Eeyore, the donkey, right, from Winnie the Pooh. When my girlfriend saw me looking at this book and saw me looking at all these photos of these guys, and she said, "Yuck, you don't want to look like that, do you?" And I knew at that moment my girlfriend was lesbian identified, and I most definitely now am not a lesbian. And so I just said no and closed the book and purchased it and didn't say anything else for 2 more months as I researched how to transition. Because I knew it was right for me, but I needed more information to see if it was possible. So 2 months in February, around Valentine's Day in February of 2005, I sat my girlfriend down and I told her that I wanted to have chest surgery, meaning the removal of breast. And she said with me she was fine with that because she was tired of hearing me complain about breast. But she didn't want me to start hormones, meaning she didn't want me to start testosterone because she was lesbian identified. She could not be with a man. I knew that I had to begin on hormones as well, but I wanted to do baby steps and try to compromise. And all of this is actually documented in the documentary Gender Rebel, which is now owned by Viacom. And unfortunately, I don't think is airing anywhere at this time, but we'll see if we can get that changed here in the future. And so I started moving forward with my transition, with my girlfriend being very hesitant. And I started moving forward in my transition in 2005 at a time where we really weren't talking as prominently as we are today about what it means to be transgender and what that can look like. And what we're learning today is what it means to be transgender is independently defined by each human being, your unique experience with your gender, and your understanding of self. There is no checklist approach to this. There is no black and white way to look at being transgender. Everybody's journey is unique and to their own. And for me, I knew that I had to begin, after having chest surgery done, I had to begin on hormone therapy. And I had to continue moving forward in this transition. Even though I was very scared because I found this book in December of 2004 and I began my physical transition in May of 2005. So I did this very quickly after my discovery. And I was very scared that my therapist would not affirm me because of my eating disorder. I worried that maybe this was all about my body image and this wasn't actually because I was a trans man. So I sat with my therapist and we went through different ways of looking at life. I then went to another therapist just for a second opinion. And with that therapist, he asked me, how do you see yourself in 20 years? And when he asked me that, I instantly saw myself with a beard and a cowboy hat in 20 years. In fact, this one drawing I did with my beard, that was me imagining myself having one because I didn't at that time. I think I did pretty good in predicting that, actually. And so I just knew deep down this was right for me, even though my family was not very open to it, which can be very difficult for people in looking at family. I did think for a while that maybe if I didn't tell them, they wouldn't notice, but I think denial is a powerful thing for all of us in the transition process. And so I knew I had to continue forward. So you can see just different changes. I'm now 16 and a half years into my transition. Actually, I don't say into my transition because I transitioned. I've been living as Ryan for 16 years at this point, and I am very grateful for what I was able to access and what I was able to do in my own journey. But telling my family was very difficult to do. So first person I came out to was my brother, and I did that through a letter or an email, I should say. And it wasn't a very long email. It just said, "Hey, Greg, how you doing? How's the weather? Hope you're well." I should preface by saying my brother took over my dad's chiropractic business in my small town of Aurora. So he lives in the same town I grew up in and took over my dad's business. And so along with saying I hope he's doing well, I also said, so anyway, I'm transgender and this is what it means. Here's some guys' websites that show their transition, because there were very few websites out there at that time, but there were a few that I had access to. I'm going to start my own transition too. Okay, love you, bye. He emailed me back pretty quickly and just said, "I'm not surprised. I saw a documentary on this. I thought you were transgender anyway." And so then I emailed him back and jokingly said, "I wish you would have told me because I did not know." And I say that jokingly because you can never tell people who they are. We all have to discover who we are on our own terms. And we had to have the space to be able to find the language that makes most sense to us and feels most comforting to us to use. All right. The next day, my brother emailed me again. That was one sentence long, and it just said, okay, I'm freaking out now. So it was really sinking in that his sister was going to become his brother, and was really worried about my health and my safety, and also what would happen in our small town, because rumors can go very quickly in small towns, especially around something that's extreme, especially in 2005, as what I was doing. But instead of letting that worry continue to guide him, he decided to let go of it all and just be with me in the moments. And that's the best thing any of us can do with anybody in our life journeys. You're not going to have all the answers, and we can't focus on the what ifs, because most of the time the what ifs don't happen. The key is just to be with one another, stay present, and know that we all have different forms of struggles, different forms of challenges, and different ways that we have successes in our life. And having my brother's support was extremely important to me. I'm not sure if I'd be here today without his support. I decided not to come out to my sister at this time because she was not accepting of me being partnered with a woman. But I will say 6 months into my transition, she changed her tune, and we are now closer than we'd ever been in our life. Coming out to my parents was very scary. I had to do it through a 7-page letter. It was very medically directed because that's how I had to communicate to them, especially on a topic like this. In it, I'm just going to paraphrase. In the 7 pages, it was very medically directed. I essentially said, I don't know why I'm trans, but I am. And at this point in life, you can either have a happy kid or a dead kid, because I've already attempted suicide twice while in college. I said, I need to continue moving forward in this journey. I know this is who I am and how it is that I want to live my life. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I love you very, very much, but I have to be me. Along with this, I recognize that they're going to go through their own grief cycle process, because especially at this time, it was very new information. And also, parents are going to go through grief process, right? Some parents may not. They may be able to go through things very quickly with someone transitions. Others, with everything built up in their mind and their understanding of who you are, it's going to take some time to unpack all that mentally and to be able to come to a place of comfort. While my parents were not accepting of this news when I first shared it, in fact, this first 6 months, my mom would talk to me, but my dad wouldn't. They continue to do their own work, and I continue to do mine. And I continue to tell myself that their fears and discomfort are their fears and discomfort that they need to work through. I need to continue to honor who I am, and I need to continue to hold myself strong, because this is what's right for me, and I love them, and I hope that they can see that love and love me too. And I will say that while it was very difficult, it took 3 years for them to be able to use my name, Ryan, and my male pronouns full time. They were able to do it. And now 16 years later, even when my dad shares stories about me from my past childhood, he uses my name, Ryan, and male pronouns, which I laugh at because I use my female name and female pronouns when I talk about my past, right? One time I took them out they came down to see me for my birthday, and I drove them to a restaurant, and I was driving them back to their car because I live in a bigger city and they don't like driving here. So as I was driving them back to their car, my dad was sitting in a chair next to me, and he just said, people today don't understand transgender people. They're people like anybody else. And I said, good for you, Dad. And he said, and you know what? In our senior citizen community down in Florida where we live, we have LGBT people that live there with us, and I don't care. They're my best friends. And so it's been really great to see that in my own process of honoring who I am and staying true to who I am, I also was able to push my family and see them grow and open their hearts to identities that they were not open to in the past. Families is where we can continue to push. Families is where we're going to see love grow. And so it's such a powerful moment for me to be able to do that. And it's so great to be able to share these photos. The first photo of our first family photo together back in 1979 with that glorious shag orange carpet. And then the photo from 2012 with my family. This was the first professional photo I'd taken since I was 18 years old with my family. And I was 33 in this picture. And they were all with me in the mountains in Colorado where I was getting married to my wife. And so it was a powerful moment to be able to share a beautiful moment in my life with my family and have them there to celebrate it. And continue to try to grow and celebrate more beautiful moments in our lives together instead of being apart, because life is very short. And our families teach us a lot about ourselves. We teach them a lot about themselves as well. Today, I do not have human children. I do say I don't know how people raise human children because I've chosen to raise fur babies, mi familia, right? And they're a lot of work, especially puppies. But it's so great to be able to have my own family and to be able to do my work where I hope I can inspire other families to open up to one another and to be able to accept that we don't know everything and we're going to continue to learn and grow as we age. Um, when we look at identity, it's important to recognize that we are full and rounded human beings. We are not one identity. We are not one label, right? So, for example, I don't really want to be labeled as a transgender man. I want to be known as Ryan because then you can capture all of who I am. For us all in our journeys, it's important to be able to listen to yourself. You may have feelings in your gut that can go to your heart and it goes to your brain. Sometimes these feelings can be very scary because you don't really know what they mean. I just ask that in your life, when you're presented with feelings that do scare you, to not shut them down, but to remain curious and to explore them more. Try to learn more about what it is that your body's trying to tell you so that you can understand more about your own independent life that's going to go outside of other people's lives. It's going to go outside of social media. It's going to go outside of maybe even things that majority of people are saying or you feel like your peer groups are saying. Stay true to who you are and continue to push other people so that we do not start to conform to being very judgmental people. I can say here in the United States, people are being very judgmental right now, and I do not care for it. I would like us all to be able to speak more to each other in respect and to know that life has many challenges, but we all are in this together, and we all influence and impact one another, no matter where we live or our age. So I hope that this has been helpful in hearing my own journey, and that it inspires you to think more about your own life and to think more creatively and openly about where it is that you want to go in your life, because this is your life to live, not other people's. If you like my story, I've written, as I mentioned, both Second Son and Transforming Manhood. And the Scout publishing company that I own, also has published What's Normal Anyway, which is a comic about being a trans male. It captures being a trans male in a way I could never capture it in my own forms of writing. And then also Outsider, which is a story of a woman named Ruth Moreno who came to the United States, but her paperwork was not processed correctly, so she was deemed, in her language, an illegal immigrant. And her story of being able to overcome the different challenges in our country when you aren't respected or validated for your rights and what it is that you give to society. If you'd like to learn more about my story, or if you'd like to learn more about the transition process, please feel free to go to my website, ryansallans.com, where you can read a lot of information because I've been recording this all since the day that I started my own transition journey. So thank you everyone for having me. I hope that you have a wonderful festival and book fair, and that we all meet each other in the future in person. That would be the most lovely and delightful thing I could think of actually today.